What's going on, guys? It's Dane from NRL Rumours and Updates. I'll bring you guys a video today. This is the predicted round 1 lineup for every single team within the NRL. As you can imagine, this video took quite some time. A couple considerations to take in for this video is it's correct only to today's date, so the 13th of November 2018. Obviously, a couple more signings, player transfers could occur, and in that case, obviously, I can't predict the future. So, another thing, I've factored in suspensions and injuries, and players that didn't make the top 17. I've also mentioned other notable players which I think will get a run at some stage throughout 2019. Biggest thing to take into consideration, this is only my opinion, of course. Obviously, you might not agree, and if you don't, leave a comment. Let me know what you change in each team, and because I'm always going through the comments and always replying to you guys, so I'll make sure I do that. Another thing, if a player has an asterisk next to their name, there's a reason for that. I'll stop specifically on each player, and I'll discuss why that's there. Each team will have a C next to one man and a GK next to another for captain and goal kicker, respectively. With that being said, let's get stuck into this, guys, and I really hope you enjoy this one. Alright, guys, first team we're going to get started on is the Brisbane Broncos. So at fullback and goal kicker, I've got Jermaine Asako. Corey Oates on the wing, asterisk next to his name. He hasn't officially re-signed yet, but it's very likely to occur. Darius Boyd, the captain in the centres. I've switched him and Asako around in position because I think the Broncos, especially with a new coach coming in for 2020, should start to look to the future now. I think Darius Boyd will possibly retire after this year, and Jermaine Asako's experience at fullback will further help the Broncos in the future. Going to the centre now, we've got James Roberts and Jordan Kahu partnering him. Halves, Anthony Milford and Cody Nikorima. I think the Broncos might stick with them one more year, although I wouldn't be surprised if they did debut a young half or something throughout the year if that continues not to work. Going to the front row, we've got Matt Lodge and Joe Offahan Gowie, with Andrew McCullough locking down at hooker. Another asterisk next to Matt Lodge, as he has not officially re-signed yet. But I believe because of what happened overseas, obviously, he needs to have certain agreements pending to his contract. So the NRL has to look at his with a bit more of a fine eye before approving it. Into the back row, we've got Tavita Pangai Jr. and Alex Glenn, and at lock, Josh Maguire. So I've got Alex Glenn starting at the moment with Matt Gillett coming off the bench. I think that'll occur for a little while until Matt Gillett gets his confidence back. Obviously coming back from shoulder rehab and also a very serious neck injury. But I do predict later in the season him and Alex Glenn will switch positions there. Getting onto the bench now, we've got Jack Bird as the utility. Again, another player that can work his way into the starting side, but it is important he gets his confidence and comes back correctly. Payne Haas and David Fafita, Matt Gillett, all on the bench. That's a pretty dynamic and explosive bench. And we go to their notable players. There's some great young talent in here. Jaden Sewer, Sean O'Sullivan from the Sydney Roosters. That's their new signing. I believe he will get a chance at halfback at some stage this year. He's too talented to sit in reserves all year. Katoni Staggs and also Sam Tagatese, who re-signed a one-year deal yesterday. Alright, now we go to the nation's capital for the Canberra Raiders, predicted 17. So let's start at fullback with Jack Whiten. On the wings, Nick Kotrick and Michael Oldfield. Jordan Rapana is out with injury. He dislocated his shoulder playing for the New Zealand Kiwis over in England, and he'll be expected back in round 11. So it's a huge blow for the Raiders, especially when they were without star Josh Hodgson for a similar amount of time last season. Into the centres, Joey Leilua and Jared Croker. Croker will be the captain and the goal kicker, I believe. In the halves, Aiden Caesar returning to 5'8", with Sam Williams steering the ship at halfback. Into the front row, we have Sia Soliola and Ryan Sutton, their new recruit from the Super League, with Josh Hodgson at hooker. Into the back row, one of the best back rows in the competition, I would say, Josh Papali, Elliot Whitehead, and at lock, Joe Tapano. Onto their bench now, we've got Saliva Havili coming off the bench, obviously versatile, can play hooker and in the back row. Luke Bateman, Emre Gula, and Dynamis Louis. Injuries at the moment, Hingano is undergoing rehab from a shoulder surgery, and Rapana, as I previously spoke about. Other notable reserves that I believe will play first grade through the year is John Bateman, another new recruit from the Super League, and also Brad Abbey. Alright guys, our next team is the Canterbury Bulldogs. So at fullback I've got Nick Meaney, who was obviously very impressive in the couple games he did get for the Knights last year. Christian Crichton and Remy Smith on the wing. They're two young, exciting wingers that showed they were NRL quality last season. Into the centres I've got Will Hopewadi and Kerrod Holland. Kerrod Holland to be the goal kicker, I believe. Halves, Lachlan Lewis and Kieran Foran. Really excited to see those two have a full pre-season together, and I think Dogs fans should be also. To the front row, we've got Aiden Tolman and Raymond Fartala Mariner, who I believe may have to step up and play there. I know he's a back rower, but they've got so many back rowers on the books at the moment that I believe he may have to play up in prop this year. Michael Leisha as our hooker. Our back row is Reese Martin and Corey Harawira Naira, who's a great signing and came at the right price from what I understand. Josh Jackson at lock as the captain. We go to the bench now. Jeremy Marshall King at 14. I believe he's versatile, can play hooker or halfback for them, so that adds a lot of value there. Elliot Whitehead, Sawasau Sue, and Danny Fualalo. That's a big bench. That's a lot of impact off the bench as well, which the Bulldogs, dogs of war attitude, they can definitely bring that with this side. Other notable forwards that I believe will get a chance through the year. Players. Jack Cogger, Famanua Brown, Marcelo Montoya, John Olive, and also Chris Smith. Alright guys, for our next team we head to the Shire for the Cronulla Sharks. So at fullback, Valentine Holmes, who will also be their goal kicker. On the wing, Sione Katoa and Sasai Feki. Very excited to see Katoa get a chance in first grade this year. If anyone watched reserve grade last year, him with the Newtown Jets, he was amazing. He scored some very fantastic tries, and no doubt he's ready for the NRL. Into the centres, Josh Dugan and Josh Morris, two very experienced veterans of the NRL, which no doubt will help the Sharkies. Into the halves, no change, Matt Moylan and Chad Townsend, although Kyle Flanagan will definitely get another chance through the year, whether that's through resting one of those or if one of those unfortunately picks up injury. To the forward pack now, starting in our front row, Andrew Fafita, Matt Pryor as our props, and Jaden Brayley as the hooker. Back row now, Jason Bakuya, Wade Graham, and Paul Gallen as the captain. It's a very strong back row there. Onto the bench now, Kurt Capewell as their utility. He can play centre, back row. He may have to develop a bit of a experience in the hooker role this year. Obviously, without James Seguiaro, we don't know whether Jaden Brayley can play 80 minutes of NRL yet. So, Aaron Woods, Braden Ueli, and Ava Sevafamangai. I know I didn't say that correctly, and I apologise. But I've gone for 3 forwards off the bench because the Sharks are obviously a very powerful team. They like to play with aggression through their forward pack, and I believe having those 3 big boppers coming off the bench will aid them a lot. Other notable players, Blake Brayley, who was Jaden's little brother. He was playing for the Newtown this year. Another very talented hooker. Kyle Flanagan, we already spoke about. Aaron Gray, and Scott Sorensen. Alright guys, for our next team we head to the beautiful Gold Coast, the mighty Gold Coast Titans. Really excited to bring you this one, and really excited for 2019 as a whole. As you'll see in the notable players, we've got a lot of depth this year. Starting off at fullback, we've got AJ Brimson. How could you not have him there? That's his preferred position, and he was spectacular there last year. To the wings, Anthony Don and Philip Sammy. No change there, none required. Centres, 2 new centres this year, Tyrone Peachy and Michael Gordon, who I believe will be our goal kicker. Into the halves, we've got Riley Jackson, Ash Taylor. Excited to have Jax on the coast. I think he'll complement Ash Taylor in the halves well. To our front row, we've got Ryan James and Jared Wallace with Nathan Peets at hooker. I'm keeping Mitch Rain on the bench because Pete's defensive work throughout the first 60 minutes of the game really opens up. It's less defensive work for Rain, so we can focus more on attacking, getting out of dummy half, and getting the huge meters that he does for us. To the back row, we've got Kevin Proctor and Keegan Hipgrave. Love Keeg's aggression. Kevin Proctor, very experienced. And our lock, Jai Arrow. So we head to the bench now. We've got, as we said, Mitch Rain. Shannon Boyd, a very big body coming off the bench. Mo Fonowaker. That is a very hard name to pronounce. So I'm sorry if that's wrong. And Max King. Now we'll look at the notable players. There's a lot of talent in here. We've got Morgan Boyle, Bryce Cartwright, Dale Copley, Brian Kelly, Leilani Latu, Branko Lee, Will Matthews, Tyrone Roberts, and Jack Stockwell. Very excited for 2019. For the Manly Sea Eagles, they've got their favourite sunback, Des Hasler, as head coach for 2019. So let's take a look at my predicted lineup. At fullback, Tom Trbojevic. On the wings, George Tafua and Brendan Elliott. Centres will be Dylan Walker and Moses Sully, with the halves as Kane Elgee and Daly Cherry Evans as the captain and goal kicker. To the front row, Adam Fanua-Blake and Martin Tapau, with Apisi Coruscant locking in at hooker. Back row, Curtis Sirenen, Joel Thompson, with Jake Trbojevic at lock. To the bench now, Trent Hodkinson as their utility, obviously very versatile, can play in the halves, and he played a bit of hooker last year as well. Jack Gowazeski, sorry again, I'm guessing that pronunciation is wrong. Kalepi Tanganoa and also Antonio Winterstein. To the reserves, or the notable players for the Manly Sea Eagles, we've got Albert Hopewadi, who, if you've watched any younger grades of football, is very explosive and very, very, very powerful young back. Brad Parker, who can obviously fill in centre or wing. Lloyd Perrott, and also Manise Fanua. For our next team, we've got the Melbourne Storm. So it's a little bit weird not saying Billy there, but fullback Jerome Hughes. On the wing, Josh Adokar and Suliasu Vunivalu. That's a tongue twister. Into the centres, we've got Curtis Scott and Will Chambers, with the halves as Kem Munster and Brodie Croft. I definitely believe Brodie Croft deserves to retain the number 7 jersey. I know they were chopping and changing their halfback a lot last year, but with Cam Smith very likely to retire after this year, then I think the Storm need to get serious and lock someone down there, and this is the year to do it. Into the front row, Jesse Bromwich and Nelson Asofa Solomona, with Cam Smith at hooker. Now I've got an asterisk there because he is officially not re-signed yet. That is because he wants certain third-party agreements penned into his contract, which the Storm cannot do at this time. Look, he's the best player in the world, and I've got no doubt they'll resolve that, and we'll see Cam Smith go around and break a few more records in 2019. He is the captain and the goal kicker, with Felice Kafusi, Kenny Bromwich, and Dale Finucane as the back row, Finucane at lock. Heading to the bench now, Brandon Smith, very talented young hooker who can also play a bit of back row. We'll see a few more minutes out of him this year with Smith's impending retirement. Also got Joe Stimson, Sam Cassiano, and Christian Welch. Now, Cassiano, we didn't see a lot of him last year, but he's still young, he's still got some good years ahead of him, and we've seen what he's capable of at the Bulldogs, so I've got no doubt we'll see Sam Cassiano back in 2019. For notable players, we've got Scott Drinkwater, he lit the world on fire in debut, he's got a lot of talent. Patrick Kafusi, Felice's older brother. Justin Olam, who showed his ability to fit in when injuries occurred last year. Albert Verte, and also Chase Blair. We go across the ditch for our next team, the New Zealand Warriors, with Roger Tuivasa-Sheck as the captain and fullback. Wingers will remain the same, Ken Mamalo and David Fusatua, with Solomoni Carter and Peter Hiku in the centres. In the halves, we've got Blake Green with Sean Johnson as the goal kicker. Head to the front row now, Ignatius Parsi and Adam Blair, moving back from lock to the front row. I'll explain that later. Isaac Luke at hooker. Back row, Isaiah Papali, Tohu Harris and Leovahu Pulu as the lock. So I've shifted Adam Blair back to front row because they've got a lot of back row, a lot of locks getting around the club, and he has played there previously and he's more than capable of filling in that role. Onto the bench, Nate Roach. He returns from a serious back surgery. Bunty Afoa, Leeson Armau, and Jazz Tavanga. I expect Jazz Tavanga will play a bit more second row this year with Nate Roach filling in at hooker. And then we've got Leeson Armau, who obviously was, as you can see, he's actually behind me. I got that signed by him a while ago. He was great off the bench for the Dragons. He came on and kept the same intensity for them, and that's something the Warriors largely rely on, is their forward pack to give Sean Johnson and Blake Green the space to find their dynamic outside backs. Let's have a look at the notable players. We've got Gerard Beale. I don't rate him very highly. He was still on the New Zealand Kiwis side, so obviously he's doing something right. Carl Lawton, Sam Lasone, and Chance Nickel Klokstad, who I don't understand what that guy, he's so good. I really rate him, but he's still stuck in reserve grade. Obviously Mamalo and Fusatua haven't done anything wrong, so it's hard to justify dropping one of them. But I believe we will see him in the NRL in 2019. Alright guys, let's go to the hunter for the next one for the Newcastle Knights. I know you Knights fans are keen for 2019. It's been a rough couple years, but the rebuild is finally complete. At fullback, we've got Kalen Ponga. Now I know he will officially be training at 5'8" this preseason, but with the signing of Mason Lino announced after that, I believe Nathan Brown could go back on that decision, and also for prolonging Kalen Ponga's career, he'll make less tackles at the back, and I believe he can be more effective because defenders won't be running at him to tire him out in attack, which they could potentially do if he was defending at 5'8". Let's go to the wings now. We've got Sean Kenny-Dowell and Nathan Ross, and I love the Ross Dogs attitude. He was told you can look elsewhere. He said shove it. He said I love this club. He showed loyalty, and he's going to fight for his spot. That's the attitude that I think will win him that wing spot. Into the centres, Jesse Ramian, a great signing, and Tautau Moga. Fingers crossed, please no more injuries for Tautau. Halves, Mason Lino, also the goal kicker. Mitchell Pearce, captain and halfback. To the front row now, a very explosive, powerful front row pairing of James Gavay, David Clemmer. Asterisk next to Clemmer's name as it is still not official, but it is very likely he will sign there. He's already had his club medicals at the Newcastle Knights, so it's looking really likely at this stage. Danny Levi at hooker to get some runs out of dummy half. He'll make some big meters off the back of fast play the balls from those sort of forwards. Back row now, Aiden Guerra, Lachlan Fitzgibbon with Essie going to lock. I think he's one of those players like Sam Burgess or Adam Blair. They can play front row or lock. It doesn't affect their game style too much. Onto the bench now with our utility as Connor Watson. Now I know he signed with the Knights for the intention of playing more first grade time, but that's obviously changed with all the new signings they've got. So I think he might have to be content with a bench role for 2019. Also, we've got Tim Glasby, we've got Sione Mataudia, and we've got Mitch Barnett. Great bench there. Notable players, there's a lot of talent here. Jamie Bura, Edric Lee, the Saifidi brothers, Daniel and Jacob, Zach Wolford, Hymel Hunt, and injured at the moment will be Slade Griffin. Let's head north for our next team. It's the North Queensland Cowboys, starting at fullback. How exciting. Ben Barber is back in the NRL. On the wings, Gideon Geller-Mosby and Kyle Felt as the goal kicker. And I know you're probably looking through this team right now. No JT, Ethan Lowe on the bench. Who's going to goal kick? I think Kyle Felt's going to have to do a lot of practice this preseason. Our centre pairing will be Inari Tuala and Nene McDonald. Just imagine Michael Morgan putting those crossfield kicks. McDonald and Kyle Felt both getting out. They're both known for getting over the defenders and coming up with the goods. Those two going up, no doubt one will get the bat back, one will get the catch. It's going to be a lot of tries scored from kicks down that side. Halves, Jake Clifford and Michael Morgan. I was really impressed with Jake Clifford last year, and those few games he got to play with JT, that experience is obviously priceless. Front row, Matt Scott, our captain, and Jordan McLean with Jake Granville at hooker. Back row, Gavin Cooper, Cohen Hess, Jason Tamalalo at lock. That is an explosive forward pack. For lack of a better word, but that is a very powerful forward pack who no doubt will rack up the meters in 2019. Let's hook to the bench now. We've got Tamari Martin coming off the bench, can obviously play halves or hooker, John Asiata, Ethan Lowe, and also Scott Bolton. Ethan Lowe we didn't see a lot of last year, but I think he will return to form in 2019. Obviously had a bit of time away from the game in reserve grade, and I really see him recovering and having a great year again in 2019. Notable players, they have Kurt Baptiste, that's a great signing. Obviously he can play hooker very well. Javid Bowen, Ben Hampton, Corey Jensen, Justin O'Neill, and Tom Opacek. So a lot of talented players there for the Cowboys to pick from at stages throughout the year also. Alright guys, now we're on to the Parramatta Eels. Will they return to form in 2019? We don't know, but here's my predicted lineup for them for round one. Starting at fullback, Clinton Gutherson, and I believe he will retain the captaincy. George Jennings and Michael Jennings teaming up on the left centre and wing. I've paired the two brothers up, obviously the bond. That should produce a bit of magic for the Eels. And on the other centre wing, pairing up with Brad Takarangi with Blake Ferguson. Blake Ferguson is obviously a spectacular finisher. As we saw, he got a couple of floats from Joey Manu last year, and he finished spectacularly. And Brad Takarangi has always had an excellent offload. If you remember back a couple seasons, he used to always get the ball free to Semi. I see him doing similar things with Blake Ferguson. Also see Blake Ferguson getting in and making a lot of meters early in their sets like Semi Radradra did, and that's something the Eels really needed. And look, they've definitely recruited correctly there. Ferguson led the NRL for runs and meters gained in 2018, so there's no better man for the job. Let's have a look at their halves. I've got Corey Norman and Mitchell Moses, with Moses retaining goal kicking duties also. Into the front row, I've gone with Junior Paulo, great signing for the Eels, much needed size up the middle, and Daniel Alvaro, the player of the year last year for them, with Reid Mahoney retaining the hooker position. Into the back row, I've got Tepai Mairoa, Manu Ma'u, and Nathan Brown at lock, with the bench at Will Smith, Timmy Manor, Sean Lane, and Marata Niokore. Notable players now for the Eels. There's quite a bit of talent here as well. We've got Kane Evans, Bevan French, David Gower, Josh Hoffman, Kesa Pritchard, Penny Terapo, and Jalen Salmon. So, yeah, that's not a bad side for the Eels, and they could definitely bounce back from a horrendous season last year. Okay, now we head to the Blue Mountains. We're looking at the Penrith Panthers predicted lineup. At fullback, Dylan Edwards returning from injury. I expect him to gain back the #1 jersey, although it will be hard because Dallin Watene-Zelezniak has been great there. I've got him on the wing with Josh Mansour on the other wing. Centres, Wanga Blake and Dean Farre, with the halves as James Maloney, co-captain with Isaiah Yeo, and Nathan Cleary, goal kicker. Front row, we've got Regan Campbell-Gillard and Trenton Merrin staying at prop, and James Fisher-Harris as the lock. I think Trent Merrin later in his career is probably best more suited to a more of a front row, more of a conventional, just take the hit up sort of role. So I see that playing out in 2019. Wade Egan, I've got him at hooker over Sione Katoa. Back row now, we've got Big Viliami Kickout and Isaiah Yeo, as I previously said, and James Fisher-Harris at lock. Let's have a look at their bench now. Sione Katoa coming off the bench, Moses Leota, Jack Hetherington, and James Tarmow. That's a big bench. Now we have a look at some of their notable players. We've got Cade Ellis, who was the captain of their reserve grade team last year. He's a front row forward, and I believe he will get a crack at the big grade in 2019. Tyrell Fuimaono from the South Sydney Rabbitohs, obviously very versatile. He could also fill that 14 jersey as their utility. Tim Grant's back. Jerome Luai and Tyrone May, two of the exciting young halves in the NRL. No doubt they'll get a crack throughout the State of Origin series, and Malachi Watene-Zelezniak returning to the club. Our next team we're reviewing is the St. George Illawarra Dragons, so we'll get right into it. Fullback Matt Duffy, Jonas Pearson, Jordan Pereira on the wings. For those who don't know, Jonas Pearson is a young winger from the Brisbane Broncos, played a lot of reserve grade for the Redcliffe Dolphins. He's very talented, and I think he'll have a breakout season in 2019. Into the centres, Ewan Aitken and Zach Lomax. I've left Tim Laffey out of the side, which was hard to do, but I think Zach Lomax is definitely a player of the future. Halves, no different. Gareth Widdop will retain goal-kicking duties with Ben Hunt as the #7. Into the front row, Paul Vaughan with James Graham as the captain. I love this guy's attitude. He's got the old, hard style of footy, and he's a great leader on and off the field for the young players there. Cam McInnes at hooker, with the back row as Tarek Sims, Tyson Frizzell, and Jack DeBellin at lock. Onto the bench now, I've got Kurt Mann at #14. Probably a victim of his versatility, a little too versatile. Can sort of play anywhere, but that is so handy for the Dragons. Jeremy Lattimore, Blake Lowry, and Corbin Sims from the Brisbane Broncos, who is a great replacement for the departing Leeson Armour. Blake Lowry, I love this guy. I think he's also going to have a breakout season in 2019. For those who don't know, he played the semi-final with the St. George Illawarra Dragons, and then the semi-final with the Illawarra Cutters the very next day last year. So he's obviously very tough, old-style front row forward. Let's have a look at some of their notable players. We've got Tim Laffey, Jai Field, Luciano Leilua, and also Tristan Saylor, who is the son of Wendell Saylor, and he's obviously very talented coming through, and I think we might see him in the big leagues in 2019. Alright guys, let's go head to Redphone now. We've got the South Sydney Rabbitohs, so at fullback Alex Johnston, on the wings Robert Jennings and Campbell Graham, who recently re-signed with the club. Robert Jennings got an asterisk next to his name. The contract isn't finalised, however, he will be a Rabbitoh in 2019. In the centres, Greg Inglis retaining captaincy and Dane Gagai. Halves, Cody Walker and Adam Reynolds as the goal kicker. Head to our front row now. We've got Tom Burgess and Tavita Totola. Damien Cook at hooker. You'll notice George Burgess is left out there. He'll be suspended until round 3 or 4 for an eye gouge on Dallin Watene-Zelezniak whilst he was playing for England against New Zealand in the tests 2 weekends ago. Into our back row now, John Sutton, Cam Murray and Sam Burgess at lock. Again, John Sutton has the asterisk there. He hasn't officially signed, but I believe the contract has been signed. It just hasn't been announced yet. Adam Dewey on the bench is their utility with Mark Nichols, Dean Britt and Kyle Turner. And to their notable players, not many here, not much depth for the Rabbitohs this year as far as known talent goes, although I'm sure Seabold has a rabbit up his sleeve. We've got Corey Allen, Braden Burns and Matt McKilrick as their notable players. Now we go to the Sydney Roosters, the reigning premiers. Not too many changes from last year, but we'll have a look regardless. So we've got at fullback, James Tedesco. On the wings, Brett Morris and Daniel Tupou, with Latrell Mitchell and Joseph Manu in the centres. Latrell Mitchell retaining goal-kicking duties. In the halves, we've got Luke Keary and Cooper Cronk, very talented halves pairing. Front row, Jared Waria-Hargraves, Dylan Napa and Jake Friend at hooker as the captain. Into the back row now, we've got Angus Crichton and Boyd Cordner with Isaac Liu at lock. Onto the bench, Mitch Orbison, who can play centre and a bit of second row and lock, as well as halfback, as the team list for the grand final last year would have had us believe. Victor Radley will have to move back to the bench, I believe. CRCR Takiaho, oh my goodness, and Zane Tetevano on the bench, with some of the notable players. Ryan Hall, he did his ACL, that's why I've got him not starting. He'll probably need a couple more weeks from when the NRL starts to be fully recovered, but he is the England international winger, so he's very talented, very good signing for them. Brock Lamb, not the biggest fan, but obviously if Luke Keary was to get a call up to State of Origin this year, he would go there. Lindsay Collins, the best mullet in rugby league, and Nat Butcher. Last but certainly not least, we go to the West Tigers with newly appointed head coach Michael Maguire. So at fullback, Moses Mbai. On the wings, Corey Thompson and David Norfoluma. Centres, Mahe Fanua and Isan Masters as the goal kicker. That's a very strong centre pairing. Halves, Benji Marshall and Luke Brooks. Into the front row, Russell Packer with his best mate Ben Martellino, Robbie Farah at hooker. I've got the captain signed next to Benji Marshall and Robbie Farah because I believe out of all the players there, they embody the Tigers spirit better than anyone. They're both veterans of the club and both love the club. Halves, new signing from the Roosters, Ryan Madison. I believe he'll get his start alongside Chris Lawrence, with Elijah Taylor locking down at lock. Josh Reynolds, the utility off the bench. Him and Marshall could potentially switch places through the year, although I see the value of Reynolds coming off the bench as he's also able to play hooker. Alex Twal, Matthew Eisenhuth and Michael Cheekham. 3 players I'd love to see get more minutes for the Tigers this year. All are super talented and their stats don't lie. Their stats are often better or if not equal to the starting forward pack there, but with less minutes in 2018. So they definitely deserve a couple more minutes in 2019. On to the notable players now. We've got Josh Aloiai, Luke Garner, Jacob Liddell, Chris McQueen, Paul Momorowski, and also Robbie Rokow. So very talented list of reserves potentially there for the West Tigers. Okay guys, that's going to wrap it up. We've gone through all the NRL teams now. You'll notice in the video my eyes might have been doing this a bit, looking left and right. Obviously I had my notes written down that I prepared earlier today. This is a very lengthy process. As I said, I had to go through every single NRL player and team, get my top 7 and get the notable reserves, find out who was injured, find out who was suspended. So obviously it took quite a long time, and I think the video reflects that. It's going to be around 30 minutes. So if you have made it this far, I can't thank you enough. That means a lot that you would actually sit here and look at this rude head for half an hour, and I appreciate it so much. Obviously, like I said before, there could be a few errors. I hope there's not. I failed on the pronunciation of at least 2 or 3 players. I know that for certain. But overall, I had a lot of fun making this video, and if you want me to continue making these sort of videos, let me know with a comment down below just what sort of content you'd like me to continue making in the off-season, and obviously if you have any ideas for new content in 2019. to the graphics that I use. So I just used that all online websites. It was not fun. It took a while. So if you're good with graphics and you want to help me produce better quality in the future, or you have any tips or anything on how to make these videos better, again, could you leave that in the comments? That'd be greatly appreciated. But for now, that's all I've got time for today. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, it took, I don't know how long it took, but if you look at my Instagram story from today, because I'm planning to upload this at the same time, you'll see when I first started. It was quite a while ago. So yeah, thanks so much for being here, guys, and really hope you enjoyed it.